Miss Jaida, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
I'm so happy to see you. And glad we've color coordinated. We didn't even plan this out. It just worked.
Earth tones.
I love it. I love it. And aside from looking lovely, you're such a talented young woman. And so we want to talk a little bit about what has the Poetry Ourselves program done for you as far as how you feel about yourself or your confidence. Like what came before, what came after?
I think for me, like, confidence came after. Poetry Ourselves really kind of gave me an outlet to figure out who I was as a person, just to, like, I feel like I'm a let me think about this. I think I pick labels a lot, but I don't mean them. Like, oh, I'll say I'm confident, I'm not. Or like I say I'm great, but I don't believe that. So I think Poetry Ourselves let me realize who I was just through writing. It was more authentic.
So you got to identify some clear skill and talent, right?
Yes.
And then the confidence comes from, do you think the confidence comes from other people affirming it, or are you seeing more of it in yourselves? Like where do you think the difference between saying, I wasn't confident, but now I am? Like what do you think caused that shift?
I think it's both, like, responses from other people, but also just, my friend actually gave me this amazing quote, and it's by Maya Angelou, and it's, I stand as one, but I come as 10,000. Yeah. So every time I get nervous, I'm like, I stand as one, and I come as 10,000, and everything will be okay.
Absolutely. And that 10,000 is referring to
ancestors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're never alone. Never. You're never alone. And that alone can make you feel confident.
Yes.
Like you're not out here by yourself. How did you get started writing? Where did that come from?
Ooh. I don't really know. I know in class a lot as a kid, I would always just, like, write on papers, and I'd get really angry when my teacher would take it. I'm like, no, I need that. Like, you can't take that from me. And in 8th grade, there was this writing competition at UConn, and I wrote this poem, and I really loved it, but I didn't win anything. And ever since then, I just kept on writing, because I feel like I have so many thoughts, and I have no one to share them with. So a pen and a pencil, like a pen and a paper, is kind of the only thing I have for that.
That's beautiful. And do you write traditionally on a pen and a paper?
Yes, can't type it.
Oh,
cannot do it.
I love it. Classic. I love that. So what do you see for yourself in the future as far as poetry and writing go? What does that look like for you?
I feel like it's something that can never leave me. Like, I want to grow up and I want to be a lawyer, but I feel like I will always be a poet on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's my night job, my side job, the hustle. Yeah, I feel like that's what it will always be.
Do you think poetry can be a main job?
I do believe it can be. And I think for me, it will probably take precedent over other things. Like, yes, I will be a lawyer, and yes, I will be, like, the political figure I want to be, but poetry will always be part of that identity.
You can be both, right?
Yeah.
You can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other, right? How does it feel being the Youth Poet Laureate? Like, what is that? What does that even mean?
I still don't know.
Okay.
I know for me, it feels weird. Like, I feel like I didn't do anything to get here. So
Does it?
It feels completely undeserved.
Undeserved is an interesting word.
It feels undeserved.
Undeserved is an interesting word. So when you think of Youth Poet Laureate, outside of you holding that title, what would one need to earn that title, in your opinion? How you imagine?
Talent, drive,
yes,
ambition,
yeah,
and kind of like a voice that leads the room.
Yeah. And so would you say you had talent?
Well, I guess so.
Yes. Drive.
Yes.
Ambition.
Yes.
A voice that leads the room.
I like to think so.
There's a little imposter syndrome that can come with moments of success, right? And so sometimes it's when we're so honored, we might feel like, I don't deserve this honor. There are other people who deserve it. And I don't think it's so much about deserving as you didn't win it like the lottery.
Yeah.
You earned it through your work and your efforts. And this belongs to you. So, and part of your confidence as you're moving through that is understanding that you are here because you're supposed to be, and other people recognize your gifts and your strengths, and you should be here, and we're glad.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here, and you can be proud of that. So whenever you hear that other voice that suggests that, I don't know if I deserve it, you're reminded that you didn't just win this, you were point to, right? This is yours. It belongs to you. So I didn't mean to preach to you like a mama.
No, it's okay. But sometimes I need it.
I tend to mind brown girls' business. So you could either call that a bad habit, I'm nosy, whatever. You can tell me to hush. Well, you can't tell me. What was it like interfacing with students or poets who are poets for a living?
It was kind of eye-opening. Like, you sit and you write poems all day, and everybody pays you to do that. It boggles my mind because I feel like traditionally the stereotype is, oh, you're an artist, you're a poet, like you struggle, you don't make rent, like things of that nature. Like, it's always the image of like a struggling artist. So I see people who like their main job as being a poet is both inspiring and kind of mind-blowing.
And it's important to see that, right?
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we have to see things to know it's possible, or to know it's an option, to know it exists. So that's great. We're glad that has been planted in you. And I don't say that to discourage the law too, because we need that. we need lawyers that look and think like you. So that's important in addition to the art, because it's a way to connect with people, right? Tell me about your creative process. Like, what does it look like? Do you sit down to write and something comes up, or you have an idea and then you sit down to write?
Ooh, creative process, it's chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go through my everyday life and I'll think of like little lines and phrases, and I have this black notebook and it's just filled with things that make no sense to anyone else but me.
Love it.
And then when I want to write something or I'll get an idea, I will pull out the notebook and pick ideas from it.
Yeah.
A lot of my inspiration also comes from my psychology class, which is weird because I'm like, wow, I feel like I always try to understand human behavior and like taking a step, like bird's eye view lens, like why are you doing these things?
Yeah.
So I think my inspiration comes from everything, and when I write, I usually write the middle and the end before I ever get to the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Who do you write for?
I write for me, and I think that's a little selfish sometimes, but yeah, that's who I write for.
Selfish is an interesting word, right?
Yeah.
We've been taught that it's bad to center ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think's wrong with it? It has a negative connotation, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Yes, that's how I feel about it. I feel like I think everybody thinks that writers write to be famous or to be something, but I don't do that. Like, I write for me, to make me feel better, and if it happens to like catch somebody's attention, that makes it all the more better. But I still find value in it, even if it never leaves my notebook.
Okay. And the things that do leave your notebook, who do you imagine the audience is that's going to most connect with what you say?
Usually, like Black and brown people. Sometimes I'm writing and I'm like, ooh, can I say this? And I'm like, I'm gonna say it. And I'm just like, should I? So yeah, I like to give the voice to the voiceless.
It's a great question. When you say, should I say this and can I say this, who are you imagining finding what you say uncomfortable or inappropriate?
I'm imagining like an angry white supremacist, like, you can't say that. Like,
yeah.
That's not what this country stands for. That's not true, things of that nature. Like, I don't know what the word is, but I really don't want somebody to look at my work and be like, that's fake, because it's not. Like, it's the most authentic part of me.
Yeah. I like how you think. This is great. Who influences your work? Is there a person or people, music? I know you said psychology inspires you, but who influences your style?
Influences? Originally when I started writing, I had like nobody to influence me. Like, it was kind of just how I felt. And over the past couple months, I've found inspiration from a lot of writers. One of my favorites is James Baldwin. I was watching a documentary actually the other night, and he was saying how he doesn't feel like he was like a radical person, that he was more of a social observer. And he sat back and watched everything happen, and all he did was document it. And I feel like that is like the essence of who I am. Like, I will document everything, but somehow I won't feel that that's enough.
James Baldwin, when did you get introduced to James Baldwin?
Actually, in my Black and Latino Studies class, I have an amazing teacher, and she was like, I need to show you guys this documentary. And I've looked at James Baldwin books, and I'm like, I'm no, like I don't want to read that. And
It seemed heavy.
yeah, I was like, this feels like too much for me. But we were watching, it was actually a book that he never finished writing because he died. And it was like 30 pages, but it was turned into a video essay. And it was probably one of my favorite works ever. Yeah.
Who would you like to inspire?
I would like to inspire the quiet kids in the corner of classrooms because that's who I was.
And you say was in past tense, so you no longer see yourself as the quiet kid?
No. No. I'm always the kid raising her hand. I'm always the controversial kid. Like, I've learned that biting my tongue isn't fun for me, so everyone around me is going to have to deal with it.
All right.
Yep. If you don't like it, well then you can leave the room.
I love it. So imagine other quiet kids have things they want to say and just haven't figured out how to get their voice in the room.
That's how I feel every quiet kid is. I feel like if I could go inside the minds of quiet kids, I would, because I feel like they think and feel so much more than the average person ever does.
Quiet kid could be an interesting title for something.
It could be.
What is it you want people to know about you as a person? What is it you think people get about you, or what is things that they don't quite understand about you? What do you want people to know about you?
I want people to know that I don't do things for them to recognize it. You know what I mean? For the past couple months, I've been in this phase of I am worthy enough whether somebody tells me or not. So my thing is, like, I've learned to take up space in a room, so whether you like this or not, I'm going to do it. And if you're uncomfortable, that's not me being mean, but that's you having a problem within yourself. And that sounds very blunt and harsh sometimes, but I just wish people knew that. Like, I'm not here to cater to everybody. I can't. It's not my job. It's not my place. It's not even an attainable thing to do.
I don't know if you know how advanced thinking that is for a young person, but it's a gift to yourself, because what it can do is you become imprisoned to how other people feel about you, and that can become your guide, so that you have recognized that at this point in life. Well, it will serve you well, which also serves others, because if you're in a public space and you're talking about this, it can free other people from being trapped into how other people feel about them. Well, Jaida, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Do you have any other things you want to add? Any questions?
Questions. I always get asked, what does being a poet mean to me? And I don't know yet. So I wonder, what does being a poet mean to you?
That's a good question. So I think for me, being a poet has been an outlet. So I was also a quiet kid. I also have some introverted tendencies. And for me, what I didn't learn until later, it was also a way that I learned to gain approval. When I wrote, teachers saw me, right? I was invisible till they're like, oh, this little girl has something to say. So it was a way for me to become a part of the conversation. And later, as I got older, realizing when I spoke my truth or said the thing that someone else wanted to say, that was a gift, and it allowed a connection. So a gift to people, like, oh, you said something that I wouldn't have said or couldn't have said that way. So poetry for me has been a way to creatively tell stories, to connect and encourage, and to push or be controversial when my instinct and what I was taught was to be good and quiet and appropriate. And it's been a way to be loud and intrusive and disruptive. So poetry has been my outlet to be more free in this life. It's a great question. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jaida. Well, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
In our efforts to do more with and for our students, we at the Connecticut Office of the Arts are excited to introduce the Connecticut Youth Poet Laureate Initiative. The Connecticut Youth Poet Laureate Initiative is an acknowledgement of the excellence that we found in the students of Connecticut by way of the Poetry Out Loud program. We know that the participating students are only a small portion of the creative talent in Connecticut, and it is our hope that this ongoing initiative will allow us to find and nurture more creative youth voices. In this inaugural season of the Youth Poet Laureate Initiative, we've used the Poetry Out Loud and Poetry Ourselves programs to create a blueprint for what qualities our candidates should embody, as well as what we'd love to do to assist our candidates in their creative and professional futures. It is our hope that in presenting students as the pictures of creative expression and bravery, that it will embolden others to use the voices we know they have to serve their communities and the world at large. The mission of the Youth Poet Laureate is to serve as a voice for their generation and to serve as permission for their peers to stand up and speak up. More information on this initiative can be found on Connecticut's official state website. It is our honor to present Jaida Taveras of Naugatuck High School as Connecticut's Inaugural Youth Poet Laureate. Jaida has exemplified all that we hope our future Youth Poet Laureates will: courage, creativity, authenticity, humility, and a dedication to growth. We are sure that in this first ever season, our Youth Poet Laureate will inspire us all. Please join us in congratulating Jaida Taveras on a job well done. Congratulations, Jaida.
Jaida, this plaque is a part of your appointment as the inaugural Youth Poet Laureate for the state of Connecticut. We felt like this role, we felt like it's something that we were able to jumpstart because of your participation in Poetry Out Loud and everything that you've exemplified as a student, as a poet, and we're excited that this is something that we can do now and going forward, and we can use you as an example for future students as, you know, like the blueprint for what we look for in a youth leader, a voice for the youth. So I am honored
Thank you.
to have been a part of your journey. I am honored to present that to you, and I hope you feel as proud of yourself as we are of you.
Is a hug appropriate?
Yes.
I am Connecticut poetry. On average, 648,000 hit-and-run accidents occur each year. This one almost made it into the count. Something about a 16-year-old driving a piece of aluminum at speeds of 60 miles per hour seems dangerous, seems like something out of a social experiment, and you know what? I'm starting to think it is. A game of how close to death you can get to without actually making it there. Other people call this game learning how to drive. So, my story is I took a turn a little too fast. Didn't see the man on the curb that I may or may not was supposed to be on. His eyes should have widened. His arms should have shaked back and forth in fear of the oncoming car, the one I was driving. His soul should have left his body and taken its last breath of air, but he didn't. He just kept it going. Head bopping, foot tapping, headphones blasting, back turned, completely unaware that he almost died. He just kept it going, one foot in front of the other, as if the ground owed him something and the sky above him was making sure the debt was paid. As this man continued with no haste in his steps, I couldn't help but think that as he minds his own business, somewhere in the world, terror is all they know. As he walks, a bomb is dropped in the Middle East, exploding men to bits with limbs detaching from the only body they've ever owned. Blood splatters on street corners, alleyways, and rubble. People drag bodies with unfamiliar faces, but somehow the grief still hits the same, all-consuming and everlasting. The man on the curb takes another step, and somewhere in the world, a girl is at the grocery store loading up her car. And a woman drives right next to her, begging her for gas, and because the girl is kind, she drives to the nearest gas station with the woman's car in tow. She even gasses the car up herself. Out of nowhere, a man jumps out of the car and drags the girl in. That girl learned a little too soon what womanhood meant. Learned that being a woman is defined by how men use you in ways only the devil himself could replicate. Learned that although her mind and body may be hers, it is passed around like a trading card. Its only value lying in speed, combo, and body type. The man on the curb takes another step. His head bops to the beat, and another melanated body drops to the ground. Another kid gone too soon, another cop too trigger happy, another news station saying he shouldn't have run. The man on the curb takes another step, and a child overseas dies of malnutrition. His bones look seconds away from cutting his skin open. He dies next to hundreds of others awaiting the same fate. And I turn the wheel, hit the gas, and drive home with the weight of the world's sorrows on my shoulders.